Tensions have erupted once again in Washington, this time between President Donald Trump and Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. What started as a brief moment of mockery online has now ignited a national debate about citizenship, loyalty, and American values.
You know, I've been watching politics for decades, and I can tell you this with absolute certainty. What recently happened between President Trump and Congresswoman Ilhan Omar isn't just another political spat that'll fade away in a week. This is the kind of moment that fundamentally shifts the entire game board, and I'll be honest with you, most Americans have no idea what they're actually witnessing here. We're looking at something that could reshape how we think about loyalty, citizenship, and what it truly means to be American, and the implications? They're staggering. Now, let me remind you quickly on how this all started for the ones who missed it. Omar decided to take a completely different path. Instead of showing basic human decency, she chose to mock Kirk's death publicly, openly ridiculing a man's death while his family was still grieving. While his children were asking where their father was, Omar was posting cruel memes for the world to see. Now, I've seen a lot of political rhetoric in my time, but this hit different. This wasn't about policy disagreements or partisan battles. This crossed into something much darker. Americans from all walks of life, Democrats, Republicans, independents, people who barely follow politics, they all had the same visceral reaction. There are lines you simply don't cross, and death used to be one of them. Even bitter political enemies once understood this basic principle of human decency. The reaction was swift, and it was overwhelming. Social media exploded with one message that cut across party lines, people calling for Omar's deportation. And here's what made this different from typical political controversies. It wasn't just conservatives angry at liberals, or Republicans mad at Democrats. This was Americans across the political spectrum saying, no, you don't celebrate death, you don't kick a man's legacy while his family mourns. But here's where Trump's political genius comes into play. Most politicians would have issued a standard condemnation, maybe called for an apology, and moved on. But Trump? He saw something bigger. He understood that Omar had just handed him the perfect opportunity to reframe an entire debate about American values, and he took it. And just when emotions were boiling, Trump stepped in. When Trump responded, he didn't just defend conservatives or attack Omar's character. No, he did something far more strategic and devastating. He flipped the entire script by pointing directly at Somalia, Omar's country of origin, and laying out the stark contrast between that failed state and America. He talked about the poverty, the corruption, the decades of civil war, the fact that the vast majority of Somalia's population lives in extreme conditions that most Americans can't even imagine. But here's the masterstroke. Trump then asked the question that changed everything. How can someone from a failed state lecture Americans about how to run America? Suddenly, it wasn't about Trump defending conservatives anymore. It was about Omar trying to explain why she, of all people, had the moral authority to scold this nation.
In recent days, Omar appeared to take a jab at Trump during a campaign rally, referencing his ongoing legal troubles and questioning his patriotism. Trump, never one to stay silent, responded swiftly, not with a simple counterattack, but with a broader challenge. What does it truly mean to love America? His response wasn't just personal, it was philosophical, reviving the long-standing debate over who gets to define loyalty and how dissent fits within democracy. Supporters of Trump saw his words as a defense of national pride, recalling moments when respect for the flag, the military, and the fallen were seen as untouchable. Critics, however, argued that his framing risked silencing voices who challenge U.S. policy or speak from immigrant experiences. Voices like Omar's. Omar, born in Somalia and raised in Minnesota, has long said her criticism comes from a place of accountability, not disloyalty. But the exchange reignited old tensions, from earlier controversies about her comments on U.S. foreign policy to Trump's infamous "go back" remarks, creating a cycle of rhetoric that once again put identity politics in the spotlight. Observers note that this clash isn't simply about two politicians trading barbs. It reflects the larger divide within America. On one side, a call to restore traditional symbols of patriotism. On the other, a demand to redefine what it means to belong in a nation built by immigrants. Political analysts point out that debates like this often shape voter sentiment more than policy discussions. In an election season already charged with emotion, these symbolic battles can set the tone for how Americans see themselves and each other. This controversy also raises questions about the media's role in amplifying outrage and whether we, as a nation, are losing the ability to separate critique from contempt. Trump and Omar may stand on opposite ends of the spectrum, but both are navigating a political culture where viral moments often outweigh substance. So what do you think? Is this clash a sign that America is reclaiming its moral compass? or proof that our sense of unity is fading in the noise of outrage politics? Share your thoughts below, and let's keep the conversation focused on facts, values, and the future we want for this country.